DIY with Nancy. Hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to share with you my homemade bread recipe. 4 ingredients. It's very simple and easy to make. There's no kneading involved whatsoever, only 4 ingredients. So I hope you stay with me to watch how to make my homemade bread recipe step by step. To start, in a bowl, I'm going to prepare the dough. And I have 3 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to add that all in there. 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. 1 tablespoon of active dry yeast. I'm using a wooden spoon to combine the ingredients to make the dough. Next, for the final ingredient, I'm adding 2 cups of lukewarm water, adding the water gradually and constantly stirring to combine the water with the flour to eventually form the dough. You don't want to over stir your dough, but as your dough forms, you want to be pulling it from the bowl into the center as I'm doing here. This dough will be a very sticky one. After a few minutes of stirring, here is the dough ready to rise. Next, you want to take plastic wrap and place it on your bowl, slightly covering it. Don't seal it tightly, leave it loosely and ready to rise. And this dough will be rising for about 2 to 2.5 hours or until it doubles in size. The dough has now doubled in size, and this dough is a very loose dough, as you can see. Set aside half a cup of all-purpose flour to flour the dough and mostly your hands. This is very sticky and you want to make sure that your hands have a lot of flour. I've set aside a baking tray with parchment paper, and here all I'm simply doing is flouring my hands and separating the dough to make 2 small loaves, always ensuring that my hands have a lot of flour. It is a sticky dough. Now I'm not going to be using the flour to knead dough because the dough itself does not need any more flour. I'm simply flouring my hands and using it to form the loaf. As you can see, you can have a round loaf or a long loaf, your preference. Once again, I'm going to flour my hands and take the dough to form it to a second loaf. Now you can make 1 big loaf of bread. I've just decided to make 2 small ones for today. So again, I'm flouring my hands and forming the loaf just by folding it in, tucking it in, always keeping my hands floured and forming the loaf into a small loaf, just as I'm doing here. Once you have your loaf of bread formed, you want to place it onto the baking tray. Now that the loaves are on the baking tray, it's ready for a second rise, and you want to set it aside, cover it with a tea towel, and let it rise for an additional 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, the dough is now ready to be placed in the oven. Before placing the dough in the oven, I'm going to create some scoring on the bread just by using a scissor and just doing some slashes on the top. So I'm choosing to make 4. You can design or slash the bread on top whichever way you like. Now I'm just going to place some flour, all-purpose flour that I've set aside, and I'm going to flour the top of the dough, just as I'm doing here, before I place it in the oven. Now I have the oven preheated at 450 degrees. Now before placing my dough in the oven. I've positioned 2 racks, one in the middle and one in the lower position. And in the lower rack, I have a metal tray, and I'm placing some water to create steam while the bread is in the oven. Now the steam just makes the bread expand easily and it keeps it moist. Now once you have the bread in the oven, close the oven door quickly to keep the heat in. Now I'll be baking the bread at 450 degrees for 30 minutes. And here is the bread after 30 minutes. Nothing like making homemade bread that you can cut into. It's nice and crispy on the outside, soft on the inside. And you can see the air pockets there. It's nice and airy and soft. Okay everyone, that was my recipe for homemade artisan bread. And I just want to thank my friend Anna for sharing this recipe. Anna, as you can see, I sliced the recipe in half, but it is perfect for our home here. I have made this bread so many times now. This is my go-to homemade bread. And it's crispy on the outside, soft in the inside. Just amazing and simple. As you can see, 4 ingredients, about 2.5 to 3 hours rising time, and half an hour in the oven. All worth it. Hope you all enjoyed the recipe today. And if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, take care everyone.